Well, amazing people, welcome back to Live to Inspire podcast, episode 17. Yours truly, as always, David Coleman, and today talking to you about thinking and overthinking. Before we get stuck into it, I do owe you guys an apology. Got carried away over the last couple of weeks. I travelled to Dubai, saw some friends up there, and yeah, I again struggled to think of, shall we say, content. I don't really want to use that word, but topics, let's go with that, topics to discuss and share with you guys about, in order just to try and help. As you know, that's my purpose here and the purpose of these podcasts. So I did struggle, I have struggled personally, and that's what's prompted me to discuss this topic with you guys of thinking and overthinking. I must as well mention I've had quite a few more messages from people saying, they're really enjoying it, which is amazing for me. Like I did it sort of selfishly to try and clear my brain, because I do think and overthink quite a lot. And people have gone on to share it to others that they think it may help, which again for me is massive. I take that as very, very high praise. So I do thank you all for that and sharing and listening to my ramblings, as I like to call it. So thinking and overthinking, it got me. Well, let's go with the starting point. Okay, one of the people I like to listen to is a guy called Alan Watts. I think he's around in the 60s. I don't really want to say a philosopher, but had quite a large dealings with Stoicism, and his kind of outlook on thinking or thoughts were that thoughts are just chatter in the skull. So, and it kind of led me to process this in that, where do thoughts and how does the process of thinking come about? And personally, all I could come up with really was that thoughts or thinking arises from past experiences, and that they allow us to play out certain situations in our head with a whole variety of possible outcomes that to ourselves are entirely plausible. And we can continue to think about these outcomes, these processes, these scenarios, these situations, these events and experiences, time and time again, and they can be dictated by a whole plethora of external and internal factors. I don't really think we have long enough to list them all. I'm sure you can think of some as well, right? It's a sort of nature-nurture argument. But when we have more plausible outcomes and we reduce those number of outcomes to either potentially really, really positive or potentially negative, which does obviously link back to this whole mental health cycle, in that are we constantly or overthinking of negative thoughts or negative outcomes, or is it a process of it could be this or it could be that? It depends on mindset, which I think I have done an episode on, so if you want to give that a listen to, please do. But I will come back to that later on. Overthinking or overanalysis, which is another way of thinking about it, again, mindset, can have links to anxiety, which for me is very poignant, right? I hold my hands up with social anxieties. I've suffered quite a lot recently with imposter syndrome. I know I've posted things about playing rugby on my Instagram, and it's great. Like, I do like playing rugby, it's amazing, but turning up to a new club and a new team and meeting new people and doing a sport I haven't done for many, many years, over a decade I haven't played rugby. So to turn up was a massive imposter syndrome. You know, I was really anxious about it, but trying to flip it into a positive, right? Why are you there? What is the purpose? which then goes back to, I think I mentioned last week about Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. What is your why? What's the purpose of you being there? What's the purpose of your life? Appreciate that's quite a deep thought. But yeah, over-analysis can also be associated with a level of vulnerability, and also openness and overexposure of openness of oneself as to how things or you are perceived by others. Now, again, with all of these factors, there are positives and negatives to be had from that. You could say that being open or brutally open and having an exposure of vulnerability allows people to come into your life, and that's a positive, right? Because you could say that you'll learn new things. There's new experiences. Jordan Peterson, one of his, I think I mentioned previously, rules for life is that always assume the person you're talking to knows more than you. If you're a closed person, you're not going to be able to welcome them into your life, and you're potentially going to miss out on that experience. But again, the opposite is that if you are vulnerable, if you're overly open and forthcoming, then it does lead to overexposure, and that then can perpetuate into that cycle of deteriorating mental health, anxiety, and depression. So just referring to my notes here. So overthinking, the development of more scenarios that take over all conscious thoughts. Again, another book that I read, one of the first books I read from my very first discus coach. He gave me the advice to read it, or suggestion, and it was The Inner Game of Tennis, and it basically refers to a subconscious and conscious thought process, that being that subconscious thought is something that you are not obviously consciously aware of, right? So if I said to you, what is your tongue doing right now, the chances are you've just started thinking about what your tongue is doing, which I do apologise, because it will probably be really, really annoying. But it has become a conscious thought. So with overthinking, all these scenarios that you have in your head about that one event, shall we say, let's call it an event, it just takes over your conscious thought processes. So you could be, I don't know, cooking dinner, you could be cleaning, you could be making your bed, you could be going to work, you could be doing whatever it is, but there'll always be a conscious thought about that event. So it can, like I said, arise or pull on anxieties, but most common is when you get into bed and you're trying to fall asleep, because if your brain cannot switch off. I get people tell me this all the time. I struggle with it. Sometimes I get into bed and I'm completely out. Like Muhammad Ali said, if I'm that tired or that fast, I'm that fast that I can be in the bed, I'll turn the light off and I'll be in the bed before the light's off. I'll be out like a light. I can be out that quickly because I'm genuinely physiologically fatigued. However, mentally, my brain can be like the Matrix. There'll be numbers going, there'll be, steam coming out my ears, all sorts going on. So trying to switch your brain off and stop overthinking is really, really hard, So, classically for me personally, there's always the case of, the what if, or even the classic old FOMO, fear of missing out. That when those things kick in, it can genuinely keep you awake for hours, and then you have a bad sleep. So there are some strategies. As always, I like to try and help. That's the point of this. Another book. So it's called the Horse, the Boy, the Fox, and the Mole. And the boy the boy and the horse are stuck in the middle of this forest, massive forest. And the boy says to the horse, "I can't see a way through. I cannot find a way out." And the horse says to the boy, "Can you see your next step?" He says, "Yeah." And he says, "Just take that." Now, I appreciate that with all of these advice. They are just suggestions. It is just advice. You can take it, leave it, ignore me. But that is such a simple win. British cycling for the London Olympics, their whole mantra was marginal gains, 1%. It's all well and good to look for the exit and look for the outcome, look for the goal, the destination. But if you cannot actually take that first step, you're never going to make it. Which then leads me on to another sort of process. So before I came out to Bahrain, a very, very good friend of mine gave me a small little picture in a frame, and it was about the destination and a picture of the mountain. And how do you know if the view at the top of the mountain is going to be good or bad? And you don't know until you get there. So this process is about the person who loves walking will walk further than someone who loves the destination. Okay, so the person who loves walking will always walk further than the one who loves a destination. Okay, so if we develop that, if you love walking, hypothetically obviously, then what that's referring to is that you love the journey, you love the process by which you're going on. And as a side effect of that journey, you'll hit loads more goals, you'll overcome loads more things, events, situations that you previously didn't think you were capable of. And I find that personally really, really empowering. Like, I get scared about a lot of things. Some of them are really trivial, some of them are really, really silly. I'm like, Dave, what are you even thinking about? Like, how has that thought even come to your head? But when it's the subconscious, it's the Nike slogan, right? Just do it. If you carry on, life goes on, and you can just go through it. You go through those motions, you take each step, okay? And you'll achieve these goals, and you'll be like, oh, I didn't even think that was possible. Whereas if you're solely focused on a destination, which is something I struggled with going back to the Olympics in 2014, that was my sole focus. And I really, really struggled mentally after that, because I came back, it was all amazing. People were there cheering with their flags, and I got back in the car with my mum and dad, and I went back home to my bed. And this whole world, this whole bubble that I'd been chasing for 20 odd years had just been, I was in the bubble, and then I was out the bubble, and that was it. And then I had no other destination, I had no other focus on that. So my journey had been really, really isolated. And unfortunately, I had no one really around to kind of guide me and to advise, suggest as to where to go and other factors to think of. So, like I say, always things to think about. The next point I've written down here, right, is about awareness. Now, this came to me from a friend of mine, but also subconsciously whilst I was in Dubai for a few days seeing friends. So when I talk about awareness, it's quite multifaceted, okay? So be aware of what you are thinking. So again, it's a conscious thought of the thought. I know that sounds a little bit weird, but just go with me on this. Be aware of what you are thinking and what those thoughts are about. Okay, so are they positive? Are they negative? Are they, how can we phrase that? Constructive, destructive? Or can you flip that mindset into, actually, you know what, this is an opportunity, this is an area for development, have that growth mindset rather than being fixed. And be present in the situations that you're in. So, and for me, this is so weird. I've only really had a few of these. I think I've mentioned about Ikigai before. Where you find your state of flow, and then there's a whole subconscious state, and you don't realize you're there until you're the person outside looking back in. So whilst I was in Dubai, we went to a brunch. I was sat there just people watching, having a bit of food, and I didn't genuinely realise that I'd completely zoned out. I must have been asleep or something. I can't really remember what was happening until one of my friends shouted, "Dave!" I was like, well, and then I was, back in the room, as the saying goes, and I totally zoned out. It was so weird. Even, when was it? Wednesday. So what are we, Thursday, Friday now. So on Wednesday, went to rugby, and we had a fixture. A couple of the guys are leaving, and just playing the game, just playing a game, playing a match of rugby. There's a level of conscious thought, okay, because you're trying to beat the other team and all those kind of things, but the subconscious levels of how long the game's lasting, where you are in the field, who's outside you, who's inside you, I don't even know what the score was half the time, because I was that focused, I was that in the zone and enjoying the process and enjoying the moment of being around these guys that have, they've had massive contributions to the team and stuff. So, be present in situations. So the reason I say this, okay, I was, again, in Dubai. I witnessed people spending hours, genuinely hours and hours and hours, just taking photos of each other. Now, initially, I sort of think, okay, it might be their job, it might be their income, all that sort of thing. But I'm sat there, I'm like, this place is amazing. Like I say, I zoned out. I completely zoned out of what was going on. And yet they were there, they were flexing, their shorts pulled up and different lighting. They brought their own ring lights to dinner, and oh my God, filters. They're spending hours editing pictures, this for immediate gratification. And to me, that's a bit backwards. Like, if you're in that environment and if you have that opportunity, what an absolute privilege. People give their right arm to be there instead of you, and you're just spending time filtering pictures and this, that and the other. To me, that's bizarre. And they weren't present. They weren't physically present in that moment. And I think that's a shame, personally. Just be present, be aware, going back to awareness of where you are, what you're doing, what your thoughts are. And if you can go into a flow state, that's amazing, obviously phenomenal. But be present, be aware around, and enjoy the environment, enjoy the company that you are with, and enjoy the experience. Learn from those experiences, because travel broadens the mind. There's always people that will help you, or have the potential to help you, I should say. Just be aware of what's around you, who you have around you, because the chances are you're more privileged than you realise. So the final kind of points I sort of wrote down really regarding overthinking, is they're three main things, right? And they can elicit and obviously positive outcomes, but also so transferable to just general health, physical and mental health, well-being, obviously being the buzzword at the moment. In that, like I said, I go to the gym. Some days I am absolutely knackered. I am completely written off from the gym, from training, from work. I've done 20,000 steps, and I'm just physically drained. My brain can't even process anything. So when I get home, I'll have some food, I'll have a shower, and I'm in bed and I'm asleep. So exercise, whatever it is, just get your heart rate going. 20 minutes, 30 minutes a day. If you're consistent with it, you will feel better. And again, we don't have enough time to list all or discuss all of the physical and mental health benefits of just exercise. So if you can, start with those 1%, get some exercise in your life. In addition to that, sleep. I mentioned this time and time again. The book, Why We Sleep, it's a fascinating read. You can pick it up at virtually any page. It's that well written. You can pick up at any page and it will just make sense. If you are sleep deprived, that has, massive health impacts, and early onset dementia, anxiety, depression, loads and loads of things like that. Similarities between alcoholism and cognitive function. And actually, if you do get a better sleep, again, most of the time it's around 8 hours, because your body works in 4-hour cycles, circadian rhythms, if you want to look it up. Get a really good solid sleeping habit. There's loads of things, like my watch always goes off at night because it tells me when my heart rate is too low. That's just part of how I'm made up. It's my physiological response. But you can get sleep trackers. You can get what are they, night lights or whatever, alarm clocks that wake up, so it gives you a more consistent daylight approach, obviously in the sort of northern hemisphere. With daylight saving hours, those kind of things are really important, so that you're exposed to more natural, if you can say that, natural light. I always have a sleep playlist that I put on. It just distracts my brain from overthinking. And so we've got exercise, sleeping habits, and eating. And I'm sure we can appreciate this one, right? Like, if your diet isn't good, the implications of that. Again, I don't need to rattle off those kind of things. I have had a few people message me, and I've had conversations about people getting blood tests done for any intolerances. Again, having suffered with ulcerative colitis for nearly 10 years now, foods can be triggers, much the same as alcohol is a trigger. And again, the same as any mental health condition, anxiety, depression always causes me personal triggers. And I have flare-ups as a result of overthinking. So my personal advice, something I try and do every morning, routine, wake up at the same time, and then have a really high fat or high protein or protein heavy meal. There's a lot of strong relationships with hormone balances from proteins and fats. And also, if you have a carb heavy breakfast, you're going to get a huge insulin spike. And then 3-4 hours later, once you've metabolized that or those carbohydrates, you just have a crash, and then you end up peaks and troughs the whole time throughout the day. So then you go down the sort of diabetic route, which obviously we want to try and steer clear of. So I appreciate these are my thoughts. There are some bits of advice and some suggestions. If you do suffer from overthinking, like I say, it is potentially an over-analysis of events, and it's, and be aware of how your brain's working and potentially why you are overthinking. My old friend's mantra, control the controllables. There's nothing you can do about a situation. Why would you give any mental energy and physical energy to that situation? If it's someone else's problem, or you've done everything possible that you can do, there's nothing else you can do, is there? So just, what will be. A very common phrase, it is what it is. I use it a lot. I know other people use it. Those people are dangerous because they've been through a lot with themselves, so they know what they are capable of, and they know how to deal with their thoughts. So as always, I wish you all the best. Stay strong, and remember, we will get there, if not immediately, eventually. Take care.